Hello to everyone. Hello. I'm excited to see all of you. And today with you we will try to understand a little bit more about Singapore. And to be honest, I promised to myself many times that I want to watch a video about Singapore. And question for today I want to ask myself, and I hope that this video which I will watch today will help me to find answers. And quite simple question. You can find this in title of our live stream. Why Singapore is one of the world's richest countries? We know that Singapore a relatively small country. It has not so big population, but it is very developed and it is quite interesting country by all means because they have several, if I'm correct, official languages. It has a huge amount of people who is from India, from Korea, from China, and Singaporeans, probably those who is living there, they have this title. But yes, before we will start to watch video, obviously I want to find out a couple things, and one of the things it is exactly population of Singapore. I know it is like close to 5 million people, but I want to know exactly. Also, I want to find GDP of Singapore because it is interesting if we are talking about economy side of such interesting country. And another thing which I want to find out it is maybe like yes, main question why Singapore is one of the world's richest countries. What kind of policy they did towards business? Because it is maybe quite important thing to know. And yes, let's go. And before we will start, you can support Alex Live channel. Your likes, your subscription to this channel would be nice to have, and also, of course, you can leave your comments. Have you ever visited Singapore? And if you visited, how it was for you? What is your experience of being in Singapore? Because yeah, you can find different opinion about countries, and yes, from political science view, I believe that interesting to know a lot of things about like cultural, economical side of country, also what kind of company they have, like what kind of structure of government they have, etc. And yes, I see already Jamie Dreams, hello to you. Here just listening tonight. Thank you for your support. Hello to Wildcat. And yes, let's go. Let's go. And yes, I promised to look for GDP. It will be first thing GDP, population, and geography. Maybe it will be also would be nice to know. I mean, like Singapore, country in Asia. Probably we already saw some photos about Singapore before. I'm sure about this, and here we can see on the big screen some of these photos. Looks amazing, like a little paradise. But let's look for population. It will be yes. I want to know world ometer. World ometer It is a website which I was using this website before. I am sure about this. Here they have statistic of population from 50s to 2024. Yes, and I want to make this bigger for all of us. Here we are. It is kind of live. I do not know how they're counting this, but what I can see for sure. What? I need to close advertisement somehow. It is ad removed. Not removed enough, by my opinion. Because I do not see pretty well all. Let's wait. Let's wait. And here we are. I see the messages, and as a gay man, my first boyfriend moved to Singapore and still lives there. We are still good friends and meet up there before I go to Thailand. Wow, it is amazing. It is amazing that you support in relationships despite that distance between you. And yes, we can see population. 2024 they are showing that population 6 million people, a little bit more. We saw that Google showed 5 million and something 500,000, 400,000. But here we can see a little bit another view. And what I can notice that in 80s population of Singapore was twice less. Why Singapore has such growth in economy, in demographic, and it is kind of stable growth. We can see this, and it is cool what kind of programs they have, governance programs. And yes, yearly population growth rate, we can see that the less it was 0.5%, but yes, it is kind of good growth of population. Sometimes it is rocketing, like in 2007, 2006, in from 2004 to 2007, for these 3 years, there was percent of growth by population was kind of huge. Anyway, yes, we can see the statistics. It is amazing. Another thing, GDP. GDP per capita. Oh gosh. Let's look at this fantastic World Bank. I was using this website before, and here we are. It is quite good quality of life there. It looks like this, and you can see that at this moment GDP per capita 2022 it is $82,000. 82. God, I want to tell you it is quite high, because if we will look at 1980, it was $4,900,000, like $4,900, 49 in 1980, exactly this year. We can see that it was rocketing. Wow, In 2008 there was a little bit crisis around the world, but it looks like they do not care. In Singapore it looks like they do not care. A little bit it was, how would say, crisis, but like not so huge. After 2008 there was everything rocketing too. Anyway, now before starting watching video, we know population, we know that GDP per capita was increasing from 80s. Also we know demographic situation, and it also was increasing. Okay, let's go video itself. I hope that it will be probably I didn't watch this video, I hope. Even like looks like I didn't watch this video. Anyway, let's go. My advice for you to prepare coffee, juice, whatever you like to drink. And I see your message that you said, Wildcat, Singapore is a great country, but being gay is still illegal. Despite the fact that there are many gay bars in Singapore, very strange. I prefer Thailand, where differences are embraced. Let's look about LGBT rights in Singapore. Before we will start, why not to watch? Why not to find out a little bit more? Singapore LGBT rights. LGBTQ rights. And we can see Equal Tax and Time Magazine. To be honest, Richest, for example, this article was made on June 2023, previous year, half year ago. Gosh, why have so many advertisements everywhere? And just look at this article about LGBT. Singapore's LGBT community feels safer as end of ban brings change. Singapore drag performer Yo Sam Ho has been feeling much more confident and safe heading off to shows in the full regalia of pink sequin dress, pearl necklace and heavy makeup. Change is afoot in the conservative city-state with a softening of attitudes and growing tolerance of gay issues, which some members of LGBT community and academics attribute to the November lifting of ban on sex between men. Yeah, there was a ban, if I am understanding correctly, and that's why situation in Singapore a little bit better. We can see it was article from half year ago, quite fresh. And if same-sex sexual activity is illegal, like we are talking sexual activity is illegal for both males and females. For men it was officially legalized in 2022 after being de facto decriminalized since 2007. And for women it was always illegal. Prior to 22, same-sex sexual activity between males was de jure illegal under the British colonial era. When it was British colonial era, it was illegal. Now everything is legal and people can choose whatever they want. But about same-sex marriages are currently not recognized in the country, including the adoption of children by same-sex couple. Although a gay Singaporean man with a male partner in 2018 won a landmark appeal to adopt a child that he had fathered through a surrogate. Yes, we can find already some movements towards LGBT rights, and it is amazing. It looks amazing. Okay, we probably yes, I'm happy to see that this becoming more normal in some countries, that they have these less barriers, and I hope that in Russia in future there will be not because right now LGBT community, it is extremist organization talking about rights of gays and lesbians and transgenders. In Russia it is illegal. You can go directly to the jail. Like 10 years will be guaranteed, even more. Okay, it was nice introduction about before we will start to watch video, another thing which I want to watch: Singapore official languages. Official Tamil. I've heard official languages. We can see the Malay, English, Tamil, and Singaporean Mandarin. 4 official languages. 4 in Singapore. And how it's happened? I believe that it is good question, but a couple days ago, I was watching in Parliament of Singapore or whatever they have. They were, because they have 4 official languages, and one of the officials was reading speech about healthcare, and as a result, she was reading at first in English, and then reading she's in Chinese, Mandarin. We see there, and also there was another person. He was using another language. I never heard this. Probably it was Tamil, because, or maybe another one of the official languages, and it is very important to know languages, and in Singapore we can find 4 of them official. Gosh, interesting education at school. What kind of language they use, they teach? Maybe probably you can choose for yourself and for your children what is suits for you better. I mean, like probably like this, because
In 1965, the newly created nation of Malaysia did something that nations almost never do. It voluntarily ejected a strategic and important part of its own land, the 360-square-mile island known as Singapore. While independence is usually a cause for celebration, the new leader of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, foresaw the coming economic calamity.
You see, the whole of my adult life, I had believed in Malaysian merger.
Singapore was already in a terrible position prior to independence. 2/3 of its million population lived in slums, with many addicted to opium. Its highly mixed population was increasingly breaking out into violence. It had no significant industry, and unemployment was already high. Its newfound independence now meant it was without access to natural resources, as the island has none. Its larger and more powerful neighbors were not only going to cut it off from trade, but were actively hostile to Singapore's existence. To make matters even worse, British military forces were withdrawing from the island, taking with them 20% of the remaining economy. Singapore appeared to be destined for underdevelopment, violence, and poverty.
It's time for Polar Palooza
Wow.
at Children's Museum Houston. Enjoy 3 weeks of thrills.
Wow.
Yet
Singapore, a language in Singapore for education and business is always English. Wow, I didn't know this. And hello to Lorian Praznovsky. Happy to see you too. Excited to see you too. One moment. I received some messages as always. Let's go.
Yet today, Singapore is the fourth richest nation on Earth. Its citizens are among the most
Gosh.
educated, healthy, and productive of any country. It has the best infrastructure in the world, it is a leader in high-tech manufacturing, and is the financial and logistical hub of all of Southeast Asia. But how did this unlikely, poor, and tiny Asian island nation go on to become one of the best places to live in the world? How did Singapore become so incredibly rich? This video is brought to you by Star Trek Fleet Command, a free-to-play mobile game available for iOS and Android. Interact with the various iconic characters from Star Trek free-to-play mobile game. Thank you.
I'm skipping. Sorry for. Maybe you wanted to listen to the advertisement, but Alex like, no way, not today, and that's why I'm skipping. Sorry. Maybe you like to listen to this, but
Star Trek Fleet Command for sponsoring this video. In the 19th century, there was a corporation so powerful it brought in more revenue than its host nation, had its own military, and a fifth of the entire world's population lived on its private lands. That corporation was the British East India Company. It derived its profits from shipping and trading resources from all over the world, and its most lucrative cargo was Chinese tea. To purchase the tea, it would sell massive quantities of opium that it grew in northern India. All of this shipping happened to pass through one narrow corridor known as the Malacca Strait. Quickly, this became the company's most profitable trade route, constituting 50% of its revenue. But in order to protect this route and to make the voyage more feasible, the company desperately wanted their own port in the region. However, a naval superpower already had an iron grip in the region. For the 2 centuries prior, the Dutch had a monopoly on these lands and outpowered anyone who attempted to compete.
and we can see this map beginnings of Singapore. This how they named this part of the video, and we can see Singapore, this small little island. I mean, yes, Indian Ocean below, so many islands, and Singapore one of them. Okay.
On these lands and outpowered anyone who attempted to compete. As such, it was official company policy to not take any actions that might anger the Dutch, out of fear of disrupting the incredibly lucrative existing trade routes. But one tenacious company official named Sir Thomas Raffles took it upon himself to create such a port on the sparsely populated island that would go on to become Singapore. Situated at the tip of the Malayan Peninsula, it was the ultimate location to set up shop. After some back and forth in Europe, the Dutch eventually did nothing to stop the British from having the territory. But Singapore was not to become an ordinary port. In order to attract traders away from the existing ports in the region, Singapore was to become a free port, meaning there were zero taxes on businesses or port-related activities. This was a massive advantage over the other heavily taxed ports in the region, and word quickly spread. In just 4 years, Singapore...
I want to look at the rise of Singapore. Because of this decision, Singapore became tax-free, and everyone could go there and to do their business. Now, let's look I want to find out a little bit more about colonial period. Colonial history. The colony of Singapore was a crown colony of the United Kingdom that encompassed what is modern-day Singapore from 1946 to 1958. During this period, Christmas Island, Cocos Islands, and Lebanon were also administered from Singapore. And we can see about colonialism. It promoted, or like, what were the effects of colonialism in Singapore? We can see it promoted opium smoking, which ravaged countless lives in Singapore. Because of this colonial period, if I'm understanding correctly, a lot of people had problems with opium. Unemployment levels were high and working conditions were often horrendous. And in the Second World War, Britain utterly failed to defend the colony against invasion by Japan, which subsequently killed countless Singaporeans. Yeah. When did the British leave Singapore? Wow, it was October 71. Although most of the British troops had withdrawn from Singapore by October 71, a small contingent of British, Australian, and New Zealand forces stayed on as a token military presence. The last British soldier left Singapore in March 1976. However, troops from New Zealand left Singapore only in 1989. And we looked at this, like when British colony left, the GDP of Singapore went high. We can see like 80, it was like, and then they became immediately rich. Gosh, it's interesting to know history. Okay.
Had attracted tens of thousands of traders from China, Malaya, and India. Soon the horizon became full of ships as everyone clamored to seek their tax-free riches. But because of its lack of significant administrative oversight, Singapore became a hub for less desirable ventures. Slave trading, gambling, opium dens, violence, and prostitution became commonplace. But booming international trade continued to propel Singapore's importance and popularity. This was supercharged by the opening of the Suez Canal in Egypt. Trading from England to China was now 5,000 less miles, which in turn cut costs and dramatically increased shipping demands. The new route also now favored the Strait of Malacca instead of the Sunda Strait, meaning more traffic was passing by and utilizing the port. Singapore was now by far the most important port in the region, and as such, in 1967, it became an official crown colony of the British Empire. But yet another development would propel its importance further. The introduction of rubber trees in Malaya and booming global demand for tin, which was abundant in the region, meant Singapore was no longer just a stop on the way to China, but the hub for the riches of Southeast Asia. Resources would be extracted from the peninsula and then transported to Singapore, where it would be processed and shipped globally.
I want to look for one thing, because they say that Singapore was tax-free, like, let's say, like many decades ago, previous century. It's how Singapore started, close to 100 years ago. But what about now? Is Singapore is tax haven, is tax-free country? Like, is Singapore a tax-free country? No, Singapore is not a tax-free nation. It follows progressive taxation policy that ranges from 0 to 22 for income above 320,000 Singapore dollars. But there is no taxation on inheritance or capital gain. But tax-free port. What about port? Is there a free trade zone in Singapore? Yes. Like we got this tax on people who is living there. They have this taxation, but if we are talking about trade zone in Singapore, yes, there is 3 free trade zone in Singapore: Shen Airport Group, something Ltd, PSA Corporation Limited, Jurong Port Pte Ltd. I don't know what does it mean, but it means something for people who is doing business there. And I believe that that's one of the big reason why Singapore is so. And also, of course, like sometimes people can receive money, but in reality they're not building anything because government sometimes is not investing into infrastructure, into anything. And they were working, investing into. It looks like this, at least. That's what I see from distance.
As Singapore has no natural resources, this fostered a symbiotic economic relationship with Malaya. With its
Malaya.
growing importance came greater British military presence, creating industry surrounding its dockyards and providing services to military personnel. By the year 1900, tiny Singapore would be home to more than 200,000 people, who were much better off than those in other nations in the region. But Singapore's centuries of unhindered growth would come to a screeching halt. As the 20th century progressed, Singapore, even being 6,000 miles away from Europe, was not safe from the ensuing global conflicts. During the Second World War, the Japanese Empire was engulfing all lands it came into contact with. In December 1941, the Japanese invasion of Malaya had commenced, and within 2 months, it was at Singapore's doorstep. Despite orders from London, Singapore was officially surrendered on February 15, 1942, and for 3 years, Singapore would undergo unbelievable suffering and destruction. Even as the tides of war changed and liberation came in 1945, the retaking of the island leveled much of the remaining structures. Singapore was no longer a jewel of Southeast Asia, but a smoldering pile of rubble. Devastated from war and neglected from a crippled British Empire, the rebuilding of Singapore was uncoordinated and unregulated. Haphazard slums started.
No tax until someone earns over 24,000 USD, and I received that. One moment. From Buy Me Coffee, I received notification, and I want to read this notification. Buy Me Coffee Adrian, Black Eyes Peas contributed $10 for a first car ever. Yes, thank you. Thank you a lot. I know not. Yes, you said I know not much getting. One moment, getting a start on getting your first car in America. You're the best. Thank you a lot, Adrian, for your support. I know that like Sam Smith Q helping me insanely a lot, but I mean, I appreciate every dollar. It means a lot for me, and I'm just happy for all support, for comments, for likes, for everything what you're doing, and it means really a lot for me. Thank you for this. And yeah, okay, let's go. What I understood now, that Singapore has a quite interesting history behind. And what I want to look for Singapore wars. Like military history of Singapore. Let's look like this. It is from Wikipedia and colonial period. What post World War II World War One, there was notable battles like Battle of Phuket, Tima, Battle of Kranji, I hope, sorry if I said incorrectly, Battle of Sirimbun Beach, Battle of China, Japanese occupation of Singapore. And there we can see it is like main battles. Post World War II, the end of the Japanese occupation saw the Singapore being revived in 1949. In 1954 was disbanded and the Singapore Volunteer Force, formerly the CVS, was absorbed into the Singapore Military Force. Anyway, maybe how many people died? Maybe, okay. Let's look Singapore flag, how it looks like, just to understand. Yes, that's how looks Singapore flag. Yes, I see your message, Wildcat. One moment. Thank you for support, Wildcats. I could send you money, Alex, but I know you get financial support from lots of people. I help people who are struggling like Artyom and Sergey. I know you understand. Of course I'm understanding. Now come on. Thank you for support. Sam Smith Q helping me a lot. He's buying me so much stuff. And Nicholas bought for me iPad. Sam Smith Q bought for me like tons of stuff which I'm using every day. And yes, thank you for your support. I appreciate this and it means really a lot for me. And here we can see Singapore flag and maybe what I want to find out. Singapore ethnicity. Oh. Oh God. That's interesting, quite interesting graphic in front of us will be now. It looks like a Singapore government agency and it means that it is official resource. And here what we can see, the proportion of each race in Singapore's citizen population have remained stable. These numbers are published annually in the government's Population in Briefs report, which can be accessed. Yeah, we can use even official resources. Yes. Chart 1, proportion of each race in the citizens' population. And we can see it was so goddamn stable. Like Chinese, it is majority. That's why I'm not surprised when I was listening parliament speech of one official, they were using English and Chinese. 76 in 2000s percent, 76 and 9%, 76 just percent in 2019. Malay 14, let's say 15% from 2000s until 2019. Indian, let's say 7%, and others more than 1%. It is crazy how stable proportion of each race in the citizen population. Yeah, it is crazy. It is crazy. I opened some link and we can see here different population brief for every year. Population in brief. Here we are. It is official. resource from Singapore government website, and here we have resident population June 2022, 4 million something. Yes. Non-residents 1,500,000. It is non-residents. Like we can see that maybe by percentage, probably like 35% or something. Like high level of population non-residents in Singapore. We can see proportions, overall population. Singapore citizens 3.6 million. Wow. I like these statistics. It is giving you non-residents. You can see here students, 4% population of students. Employment pass holders 11%. It is probably pass holders who is buying this kind of work pass holders 16%, migrant domestic workers 15%, 15 migrant domestic workers. Work permit holders 24%. Those who is receiving and using different programs in Singapore for work permits, it is 24%. Wow. Interesting.
To dominate the island, infrastructure was not fully restored, and violence and opium continued to wreck the population. As one travel magazine put it, Singapore was filled with utter filth and poverty. One must see it with his own eyes to believe it. Over the centuries, the British did little to promote or integrate the diverse and densely packed population. There was no Singaporean identity, as each group lived amongst themselves, fought for their own resources, stayed isolated to their own customs, and oftentimes had conflicting interests with the other groups. Now, with terrible living conditions and growing unemployment, these groups started to engage in violence, further worsening Singapore's situation.
Gosh.
Think about a child you love.
Okay, let's skip advertisement. And what I want to look with you today. For me it is interesting. At the beginning of watching this video, we saw how looks Singapore today. But I want to look footages from 50s, 1950 photos. We can find street markets. Here we are. I don't know, it is named Fee app. I'd never heard about this website, but you can find this military vehicles, kind of military. It is footages which was made in the 50s about Singapore. Example, man sit at an outdoor food stall in Singapore, January 1955. Hey guys, sorry I'm late. It is okay, do not worry about this. Hello to you too. And here you can find another photo from Singapore. To this day, some 75% of it was made, this photo 1955. At this day, some 75% of Singapore's population is Chinese. Like 75% of population Chinese. At this beauty pageant in 1955, contestants wear traditional Chinese dresses. It doesn't look like it is traditional Chinese dresses for me. It looks like not traditional dresses at all. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but for me it doesn't look like traditional. Here you can see a photo was made in 1950. City Hall offices. Here we see Singapore's Marine Police offices and its City Hall offices. Circa 1950. Probably it is center somewhere of Singapore. And another photo. It is already a more general probably view of those time. It looks like a more widespread picture of Singapore from 50s, because I think it is more a real photo which we can see now. People eat at a food stall on the Singapore waterfront in early 1957. Okay. And here we have even like seaports. Since the late 19th century, rubber had been one of Singapore's top exports at the start of the 50s. The Korean War sent global demand for the product skyrocketing, helping stanch the city-state's economic bleeding. And here we can see dock workers unload rubber in Singapore harbor in early 57. Yeah, dock workers on this photo. And yeah, okay. I think that for old photos enough. For maybe, of course, we probably will watch today. I'm sure about this. Just such comparison, realistic, I hope, comparison with Singapore of those time and this time. It is giving kind of interesting vibe. Okay, let's go. I do not want to use glasses now.
For most of Singapore's existence, its desire to split from the British Empire was low, as its lack of resources meant it did not experience the exploitation that other colonies faced. When the British Empire was not able or willing to defend it during the war, with its now crippled economy, rising social violence, and with the decolonization of much of the rest of the world, the idea of independence started to propagate among the population. Singaporeans would go on to put their trust in one man to do just that. Lee Kuan Yew, a lawyer who spent his years studying in Britain, formed the People's Action Party, or PAP, and was able to successfully gain a few seats in local elections in 1955. Lee spearheaded the independence movement, prompting London to initially clamp down on the PAP. But with changing British public opinion in favor of decolonization, the process of independence had begun. In 1959, Lee was elected as Prime Minister on the promise of merging with Malaya, as in his mind, it was the only way for Singapore to survive. Its economy was symbiotically linked with Malaya. It had no capacity to defend itself, and it needed help in controlling the violence and righting its economy. Therefore, merging with Malaya made sense. On September 16, 1963, this became a reality when the former colonies of Malaya, North Borneo, Sarawak, and Singapore merged to become the Federation of Malaysia. But there's a problem. The Malaysian elections resulted in a party coming to power that ruled on the promise of putting ethnic Malays first. This was a problem for Singapore, which at the time was 60% Chinese and deeply mixed ethnically. Massive violence broke out in the streets, and the PAP, against their promise, ran in the federal elections on the promise of a fair and multi-ethnic state. The ruling party saw Singapore as a threat to political, social, and economic stability. As such, a unanimous vote ejected Singapore from the nation, just 2 years after the merger. Against its wishes, Singapore was independent and alone to fend for itself. Lee Kuan Yew found himself in an impossible situation. How do you build a nation out of a population that has no national identity, let alone make it a prosperous state? How do you create jobs when you have no natural resources? How do you pull 70% of your population out of abject poverty, house and educate them, and set them on a course for a greater life? Independence also brought the departure of the British military, further damaging the economy and taking away even more jobs. The cards were stacked against Singapore, which now found itself south of a Malaysia that planned to starve it economically by stealing trade, and north of an expansionist Indonesia who possibly had aspirations of invading. Lee Kuan Yew knew the fate of his fragile nation was up to him, and he decided he was going to drag Singapore into modernity, even if that meant with an iron fist. The first thing to overcome was the social unrest, while at the same time working to cement the PAP's political.
Yeah, it is very interesting situation here that everything was like Singapore quite it has quite interesting history behind. And hello to Yuliza Marshall, happy to see you as always. Thank you for your support, and yes, excited to see you, and thank you for everything. Yes, at this moment we are talking about Singapore and trying to understand what's happened with this country. And we can see that at this moment of video they will talk about dictatorship in Singapore. Looks like this country had a lot of interesting how to say sides, dark pages in history, including dictatorship. Wow.
Power. Individual freedoms were curtailed, free speech was banned, political opponents were jailed without trial, and draconian punishments were carried out for rioting, violence, and drug use. This hardline authoritarian approach even included public canings for chewing gum, graffiti, and public drunkenness. Anyone that spoke out against the government was sued into bankruptcy. Religious extremists, communist Chinese, Malays who wanted to reunite with Malaysia were all silenced or worse. Lee Kuan Yew's solution to the potentially explosive underlying ethnic and social tensions was authoritarian rule. However, as horrible as this was, it worked in curtailing violence and stabilizing the nation. In his mind, the population would not care about the diminishment of their freedoms if it meant he could provide them with economic prosperity and social peace. Free elections would continue in theory, however, they would be tampered with so much that the nation would become a one-party state under the PAP, whose rule still stands to this day. With the social and political situation stabilized, Lee would carry out a dramatic economic overhaul that would go on to enable a miracle.
Recently, and for no reason at all,
Yes.
I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation.
Okay.
The most pressing economic problem to address was housing. Representing one of the largest slum populations on Earth, 70% of all Singaporeans lived in rough temporary structures with no plumbing. Lee instituted a controversial law allowing the government to buy land cheaply, to which row after row of affordable housing would be constructed. While initially inspired by the British welfare state, Lee did not want his people dependent on the state forever. As a way to give citizens a stake in the nation's prosperity, to increase upkeep of structures, and to build wealth, residents were heavily encouraged to buy their apartments at low rates. The way in which they could afford this was through another policy that forced a percentage of one's income to be saved, called the Central Provident Fund. Originally, the savings fund was for pensions. However, Lee modified it, allowing citizens to spend it on housing. Slowly, over time, the amount forced to be saved was increased to 25% of every paycheck, with another 25% being deposited by employers. This eventually made Singapore the nation with the highest ratio of savings to income earned. This savings policy, coupled with
I want to see symbol of Singapore because I see this dragon, a lion, whatever it is, because it looks like it is a dragon with lion head for me, because if I understand population, major population of Singapore, it is 75% Chinese, and it looks kind of logical that symbol it is dragon, and they have this on statues, such statues, and that's why Singapore animal symbol. That's what I want to know. And we can see. Now let's adjust all. The lion, Singapore's lion head symbol. Let's make it bigger. Singapore's lion head symbol was launched in 1986 as an alternative national symbol. The logo is in solid red against a white background. The colors of the national flag. The lion symbolizes courage, strength, and excellence, while the 5 partings of the lion's mane represent Singapore's 5 ideals. And we can see a National Library board. They're talking about that's why we can see this photo everywhere. Where is it? Let's look. And I want to see how looks Merlion Wikipedia. I want to find this photo of this lion. Here we are. That's how he looks, the Merlion in 2012. They built this like kind of a fontaine. I don't know what is it. Kind of fontaine. From 5th June till 10 July 2006, the Merlion at Merlion Park underwent maintenance. The last one was right after its relocation. Dirt and stains were removed using high-pressure water streams, and that is where a tier of the statue was mended. Anyway, yes, it is nice, and I want to see how Singapore banknote looks like. Banknote. Just want to see images. Modern banknotes. 2023. Here we are at how looks Singapore banknotes. Kind of like interesting. I mean, like Monetary Authority of Singapore. Okay. Creator Jensen Kohn. Want to. Okay. $50. You can see $50. Okay. A lot of interesting information we already found today, and I see in our comments a lot of messages, and you're correct, Alex. The population of Singapore is still over 70% Chinese. 75 there was, yeah. English is still the predominant language though. I think it is just like level of, it's because they are doing business. They can do business, and that's why they education. It looks like level of education they're quite high, and they're making money from this business, and that's why they're studying their English. Yeah, it looks like this. Anyway, let's look quality of education, maybe. Where this Q letter? Of education. Singapore has an excellent education system in that its students are able to score very highly in tests such as PISA. A lot of this is achieved though through long study hours, after school study and rote learning. And we can see here Quora is answering questions too. Other reasons, like the Ministry of Education sets very high academic standards and holds all school like in good shape, probably accountable to them. The Singaporean government invests heavily in education. Parents care about the behavior of their children. The teaching profession is highly respected. Singaporean students are much more respectful. Okay. Parents urge their students to do well academically. Singapore's main economic asset is the Singaporean people. Okay. They're highly patriotic. Okay, we have a lot of reasons here. They explain this quite well. Why Singaporean quality of education, like good. Yes, many reasons you found today.
With cheap rates for state-owned housing proved to be a massive success. All citizens living in slums were housed, and most started to be able to own their own property. Today, 80% of all Singaporeans live in houses they own that were originally built by the state. This has allowed Singaporeans to largely avoid the extreme housing prices in other similar nations like Hong Kong. But building houses for the population would not nearly be enough if the economy did not have jobs for them to work at. With no resources, no real existing manufacturing, and neighbors reluctant to trade, Lee knew the only way to grow was by doing everything possible to attract foreign investment, keeping in line with Singapore.
Let's look, sorry for this because I stopping in the middle of the night. I want to find out capital. Probably Singapore, it's named capital. Yes, so that's what I wanted to find out. The capital of the republic, it is named Republic of Singapore, is Singapore, because that's what I wanted to know. The country's official language are Tamil, Malay, Mandarin, and English. Malay is the national language, but English is the lingua franca and the language of trade and administration. That's what I was thinking about when I was thinking about English. Because they're trading a lot, they're like making business, and they're like, okay, we're making money here. That's like English there for them important. And another thing which I wanted to look, Singapore. Price of apartment. Because oh my gosh, I know it is insanely expensive city, but one thing to know, like to guess, another thing it is like really to see prices. And I'm shocked already. First thing which I see, 1,300,000 Singaporean dollars. They have Singaporean dollars. And here we are. What you can find for this, gosh. Yes, it looks nice. Can I make it bigger? I don't know. Probably can. And here we are. It is for, yes, good night to all of you who is wanting to go to bed. I do not see all comments now because I look at this house and I'm shocked. That's what you will pay for 1,300,000 Singaporean dollars. It is great location, what can I tell? Great location. Amazing view. Close. Yeah, amazing view, what can I tell? And here you can see plan. Balcony, bedroom 1, bedroom 2, master room, bath, dining, bath 2, 2 bathrooms. Wow. Balcony, dining, kitchen. Gosh. Who is living like this? I mean, like, come on. Let's look. Yeah, we looked one of the. Of course, I looked quite expensive. Looks like this. Expensive place, but still, just for general like idea, obviously. Yeah.
Singapore's historical roots, taxes and regulations were kept low. Companies were even given massive incentives like being completely exempt from taxes for 10 years. To keep wages competitive, Lee banned unions and actively encouraged businesses to fire all workers when faced with a strike. The government also started dumping money into infrastructure projects and creating sprawling modern industrial zones. Seeing as Singapore's domestic market was small, numerous policies were implemented to gear the economy toward exports. Mixed with Singapore's existing port, incredible geography, and business-friendly policies, simple, labor-intensive foreign businesses started pouring in. This was helped further by Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution in China that scared investors away from Hong Kong and Taiwan. Within just 10 years, Singapore had practically zero unemployment, and the economy was growing at a monstrous 13% every year. Singapore would continue to implement
some countries revolution, investors revolution scaring, and what I want to see now. There was hello to Adrian. Thank you a lot for your support, and I want, yes, I saw your donations on Buy Me Coffee. Thank you a lot for my first ever car ever in America and in my life. And Singapore, let's give me. I want to return my thoughts before what I wanted to look. Experts. Main product. I want to know Singapore export main product. And we can see and I want to look at also other stuff, like here we can see the country's main exports include electronics, chemicals and services. Singapore is the regional hub for wealth management. Water is scarce in Singapore and sizable percentage of water is imported from Malaysia. Therefore, it is defined as a precious resource. They have deficit of water, but water. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you. Appreciate this. Singapore main companies. Main companies. Again, I do mistakes. And here we can see a list of these companies. Banking Singapore Public Company. Okay. Leading financial services group in Asia with a percentage in it. Okay. Number 2, Standard Chartered Bank. Again, Number 3, MasterCard. I see majority of them it is just banks. Like just banks, of course, but not just. Top companies in Singapore in 2023. DBS Bank, Standard Chartered Bank, number 2. Number 3, MasterCard. Number 4, Procter and Gamble. It was company manufacturing Cincinnati public company. P&G was founded more than 185 years ago as a soap and candle company. Today's one of the largest. Okay, Citibank Financial Services, Syntel, Amazon, you can find there, Medtronic, a global healthcare technology leader, Grab, Bank of America, you can find there, Apple, Alphabet Incorporation. It is like a X company, or how's the name, Twitter, Roche. Yes, Singapore has a lot of plenty interesting companies. Yeah. Such analysis, I believe, is useful to know as for a person who is trying to understand a little bit more about political science. I know that it is step by step, it is slow job or for self-education, but I believe that looking at such from on one country example from different angles helping me to have more objective opinion. And usually for political scientists and for this program you need to have critical thinking, and it means that you need to observe what you are studying from different perspectives, and obviously to know example what kind of companies you can find in Singapore can help you to understand economy situation in Singapore itself. Yeah, it is nice to know.
Hyper-capitalistic policies to increase investment by foreign companies. So much so that it is the second easiest nation to do business in. With an economy starting to become ever more reliant on government intervention, Lee also took drastic measures to cut out corruption. This included sentencing those suspected to death, as well as offering some of the highest wages in the world for government officials, helping to reduce the desire to engage in corruption in the first place. This worked, and today Singapore is one of the least corrupt nations on earth.
Yes, and you can see such amazing building. Gosh, I saw this building many times, and on the YouTube channel, like super building or super projects. We will be able maybe to find this video now. Let's try to find this video. Super projects. Singapore. Mega projects. You can find Singapore, and obviously you will find there's something about this building. Yes. Inside Singapore most luxurious casino resort. What? I was looking up, they have this, wow, Spark. Probably. Yes, City of the Future Singapore. Oh, I can see myself. It is amazing. Live stream. You can see that 9 people is watching. Oh, I see 12 people watching this amazing live stream. And yes, so strange you can see yourself here. Wow. Yes, I remember that you can find a documentary about like mega project or super project about this building, and I remember a couple years ago something like this. I tried to watch, but my English was not enough for this for watching this, because it was kind of a little bit difficult. Yeah, maybe right now I will be able to watch in future some documentary about such mega projects, because come on, why not?
This substantially increased the effectiveness of policy implementation, as well as increasing investor confidence, further boosting growth and cutting down on wasteful
It looks
spending.
amazing.
But Lee did not want Singapore to always be focused on simple, cheap manufacturing. He knew the most valuable resource the nation had was its human capital. As such,
Yes.
he started creating technical schools, paid foreign companies to train workers, and created modern hospitals.
Yeah, like he was understanding that the main, like some countries understand this, that human being, it is the best ever investment. I mean, come on. We have one life, and all the best and all the worst can create human being. I mean, like person. And that's very interesting that sometimes countries, they do not appreciate on population, people of own country. I mean, like sometimes they can go to war and to kill, example, 300,000 people for a few months or year. Yes, it can. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, it is important to remind to yourself and to others we have one life, and it is good to live this life fully. And yeah, yes, okay, just unexpected conclusion. Why not? I can afford this.
To keep the population healthy. This in turn brought in more specialized industry and thus
Inside.
higher wages, higher savings, and more budget for the government to reinvest in education. This created a positive feedback loop of productivity gains. By the 1980s, Singapore was now in the business of petrochemicals, pharmaceuticals, advanced computer components, shipbuilding, chemical manufacturing, and more.
Yes, he said about advanced computers. I know one of the thing that not so many countries can produce supercomputers, and that's what we will try to find now. What kind of which countries producing supercomputers? I think it is good question, and it looks like Singapore producing probably. Okay, which countries can produce supercomputers? Top countries, as of 2023, United States has the most supercomputers on the list with 161 machines. The United States has the highest aggregate computational power. I even afraid to pronounce this because it is like petaflops are max. Like what is it, petaflops? I will not even try to understand right now because I believe that it is something a lot. Japan, second one, like 654 pflops per second. Gosh. And China, like, okay, let's tell like 400 pflops per second. And what can I tell here? I mean, pflops. let's look statistics we can find here. And I want to look Statista website. It is named Statista. Okay, Statista. I do not see here Russia. What's happened? I do not see here Russia. How it's possible? I was thinking that there will be at least one. Oh, you can see Russia. So little. Why? Russia has 7. Oops. Distribution of the 500 most powerful supercomputers worldwide from 2019 to 2022. And I see $1 million is currently equal 752,000 Singapore dollars. Thank you, because I didn't know this when I was watching. Thank you, Lisa Marshall, a lot. I didn't know this when I was watching example prices for apartments. But what can we see by looking at this statistic? On 2022 June, we can see China had 173 supercomputers. China is leading by amount of supercomputers, but United States has 128, and probably quality of these supercomputers much better, because we look like it's like 4-5 times better than Chinese. Japan has 33. Japan has several times more supercomputers than Russia, because Russia has only 7. United Kingdom has 12 supercomputers. Germany 31. Gosh, Russia doesn't have so many. Like, but how? I mean, like, look at this. What's happened with China? We can see on June 2019, China had 219 supercomputers, but now China has 173. Probably they were modernizing them. It looks like this. I mean, like, how can I explain this behavior? I do not see a statistic about Russia on 2019. 2020, I do not see Russia. In 2021, I do not see Russia. Interesting. 2022, I see Russia. Wow. Okay. Yes, consumer electronics. Let's look at these statistics. Why not? It is just companies. Yeah, Statista. Remember this site, Alex? Statista, where you can find, we can see Apple example, consume like 37%. It is 23, 61. Yes, Apple was decline a little bit. Okay. Amazon, Apple, Lenovo, Acer, Xiaomi, Asus, Huawei. Yes. Okay, Barnes and Nobles you can find here. Gosh. We had Barnes and Nobles. Wow, I didn't know that they had this. Or didn't have any idea. Anyway, it is kind of interesting statistics for me, helping me to understand like general big view around the world. And usually if I'm understanding political scientists, their working with statistics too. It is just enjoyable sometimes to look at this. But let's be honest, that's not I wanted to find before. Which countries can produce supercomputers? Are producing, making supercomputer chips. Yes, we understood China has the biggest amount, but quality can be different. Making chips for supercomputers. Taiwan, of course, Taiwan. Taiwan, United States, or fabrication plants. United States and Taiwan. Semiconductor manufacturing, yeah, we can see that it is China, the USA, and Taiwan. Like first probably Taiwan, second the USA, and already then China. I know. Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, United States, and China. Okay. I noticed on the supercomputer statistic that China amount is decreasing while the US is increasing. Yes, that's very interesting statistic that China decreasing amount of supercomputers, and probably they like decreasing them like in China. Maybe they want to have this another quality, better quality of supercomputers. Maybe this is the reason. Maybe they had example a couple of them which were like supercomputers but not so good compared to others, and that's maybe one of the reasons. It looks like this in my imagination. Of course, we need to look down more deeper, but yes, it is one of the thing like which caught my eyes too. But you can see that China is expected to produce up to 25% of the world's semiconductors by the 2030 year. 25% by 2030 year. What about the USA? I think that this information kind of, I hope that information fresh. Yes, we can see. I cannot see this advertisement everywhere. What the hell? This is notably lower percentage of global capacity than the US enjoyed. Okay. COVID-19 pandemic caused a severe slowdown in the manufacture of semiconductors, as well as the transport of both raw materials and finished semiconductors. Okay. On 21, US held just 12%. Yes, US-based companies held approximately 46% of total semiconductor market share. Yeah, I see that bigger companies, bigger countries in this, we can see it is Taiwan, number one, obviously. Second, the USA, China increasing their capacity, their ability to produce chips for semiconductors, like chips, all this stuff. Anyway, it is anyway quite interesting. Okay, let's look. Does anyone know what happened to those new cities China made but none lived in them? I do not have idea. Probably we need to watch a separate live stream about this. Yeah. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Yes, in future we will watch because in political science, I believe different topics are valuable, including about companies which are responsible for construction and stuff like this. Okay.
In fact, despite Singapore's lack of resources, it had become the world's third largest producer of refined petroleum. This is because it had once again become the regional hub of Southeast Asia, importing raw materials from its neighbors, processing and manufacturing them, and then shipping them across the planet. This status of regional hub was further facilitated by Singapore's rapidly growing financial sector, which strategically bridged the gap between American markets closing and European markets opening. This rise was also perfectly timed, as many Asian nations were undergoing tremendous growth, allowing Singapore to act as a logistical and financial hub through which foreign investment was distributed. This, mixed with pro-financial policies, allowed Singapore to become the fourth largest financial center in the world.
Most people have no clue that in 2023 the best
I do not have any clue too what he's talking about, but at this moment this video will be about state-owned enterprises.
But Singapore, coming from such humble beginnings, meant it did not have its own class of entrepreneurs. The lack of capital and technical know-how meant it was impossible for Singaporeans to build substantial companies of their own to compete on the world stage. Not wanting to be left out and to further facilitate growth, Lee organized a group of gifted civil servants and international businessmen to make efficient state-owned enterprises. This included Singapore Airlines, steel, iron, and chemical manufacturing, and many other capital-intensive enterprises. While state-owned companies are usually synonymous with inefficiency, in Singapore, their primary objective from the very beginning was to make a profit. Low corruption in government, Lee's willingness to shut down loss-making ventures, and the lack of unions, which kept costs low, meant these companies were wildly successful. By the 90s, the government began limited privatization of the most profitable, giving Singaporeans preferential rates for buying shares. These companies helped to diversify the economy as well as filling gaps in the market. The revenue generated was also placed in a sovereign wealth fund, which was then used to further funding for healthcare, infrastructure, and education. Today, Singapore is one of the richest, most advanced, and competitive economies in the world. It operates the second largest port, is the second easiest nation to do business in, and still attracts the third highest foreign direct investment. Its people have affordable housing, they have access to world-class healthcare, and their students test the highest in the world. Its government under Lee Kuan Yew was able to efficiently implement policies that relied not on ideology, but on their utility to Singapore's long-term prosperity. But this has, of course, come at the cost of political and certain individual freedoms. While it's hard to agree with its authoritarian governance, it's hard to argue with its success. The consolidated power allowed Singapore to maximize its advantages while limiting its shortcomings. Singapore has always been lucky with its location on one of, if not the most important global shipping lane. It got lucky with riding the growth of globalization in the second half of the 20th century. But most importantly, it got lucky that its dictator, Lee Kuan Yew, was smart and more or less benevolent in his actions. While it might be easy for those of us that live in Western countries to criticize some of Singapore's actions, our ideals and institutions have had hundreds of years to form, while developing nations are expected to do the same in less than a generation. The path Singapore took should not be, and likely can't be replicated by other nations. Singapore's economy is not perfect for the world, it's perfect for Singapore.
Yes, I like this ending. This ending quite you like smart ending. I mean like it is giving you vibe. I mean like he said his conclusions. I like his conclusions. How he say this? That Singapore is lucky that they have smart dictator. For sure. And his policy is was smart. I'm sure about this. Not every country is as lucky as Singapore. Of course, I mean like authoritarian regime. It is authoritarian regime. He decided, okay, I will be in power, probably like this. But I will give you good quality of life, and that's what he did. Okay, it doesn't mean that so you can find the freedom of speech about if I'm understanding correctly. Never was in Singapore. I'm making conclusions from this video that it looks like he just decided yeah, but I will, yeah. It is a very interesting video was for me. I enjoyed, I was trying to check a lot of facts about Singapore. It was interesting to look at all this stuff. And yes, and I had no idea Singapore was doing so well. Me either. I never had idea that Singapore was doing so well, and obviously it is because sometimes people they have power. When they have power, they just crazy. They're losing mind. They're thinking that like they're gods. In this situation, was good person. Yes, he took everything like, but I will do this. But I will give you. Just he probably yes. But I don't know. Maybe some people hate him because he's authoritarian, like the dictator. But still, we can see results, and for this quality of life, probably people respect this person who became to power. I don't know. Looks like this. History, it is something different. History, it is something that maybe I need to look about separately, about electoral system, about freedom of speech. It is a little bit different situation. But what I want to tell you that right now that I gained a lot from today's live stream. I appreciate all of your support. I appreciate your likes, comments. It has given me inspiration to move forward. And yes, you can support me by leaving your likes. Yeah, why not? Lisa Marshall showed in the community for car investment in me, not in the Singapore. I'm also, but anyway, thank you all of you. The most important you need to know, you are amazing, you are enough, and yeah, I appreciate what you are doing for our Eagle community, and thank you for all your support. I'm hugging you, wishing you all of the best, and as always, see you next time.